St. Louis Temple, 300 miles north. So I put on a pair of pants and I took off and I got up to the temple, and for the first time I saw devotees, you know, wearing this mud on their face and this shaved head and this weird piece of hair and wearing a bed sheet. And I'm like, wow, how can somebody look like this living in the 20th century in a metropolitan city in America? Like, wow, they have to be detached. Oh, and I was also thinking that maybe I'm the only one seeing this, that they were angels from another planet, and that nobody else was seeing what I was seeing, you know, because I couldn't believe it. It was a shock, you know, to see people looking like this. And then when I got to the temple itself, we had everybody in a line, in a queue, and each of the devotees were taking the shoes and socks off of each and every guest and washing their feet. Humble. Now in America, humble is only a word you find in a book. Nobody's humble in America. They eat cows all day long. How can you be humble? And here these people were washing the feet of these bums and good people, smelly people. Everybody got their feet washed. And I was so amazed by this. I was overwhelmed by it. Then we went inside, and because I'm living in nature, living in harmony with nature, the first thing was Tulsi Puja. And they said the greatest devotee of God is a plant. I thought, wow, this is great, you know? I couldn't believe it. So yeah, Jai Vrindaye Tulsi Deva, you know, go around the plant. Oh, I loved it. And the class, the temple president was Mankanlal Das, and he gave the class about the quality of a pure devotee. And I saw, and everybody was uninitiated in those days. It was Bhakta Bill, Bhakta Chuck, Bhakta Allen, you know, all these people. And I saw Bhakta Bill, the jolly one. He was always happy. Bhakta Allen, humble. Bhakta Tom, the Sanskrit sloka. He knew all the slokas from every Bhagavatam class every day. He'd memorize it, you know, so he'd preach it all day to us, you know. And so everybody was the symptoms of a pure devotee. I saw it by his talking. And then the deity doors opened, and all this cloudy smoke come out of the temple room, and I couldn't see the deities for a minute. You know, it took a little while for the smoke to clear. And then there was these two little guys with their hands up, you know, these little tiny guys with their hands up. And I said, who's that? They said, well, that's God, and that's his brother. And I went, whoa, whoa, God has a brother? Oh man, this is great, you know. I loved it. It was the most amazing thing. So I said, wow, God has a brother. He's blue, he's pink, he's got, I mean, he stands with and he's from now, and wow, this is incredible. I thought this is really, and I felt all of it. I knew all of it was right, you know, from those austerities. And I believed that Krishna had come to me. Srila Prabhupada, he came to me, that I was looking for somebody to teach me, and Prabhupada came in the form of that Bhagavad Gita. And then, of course, everybody was glorifying Prabhupada. You know, and I didn't meet Srila Prabhupada for a whole year, about 9 months. You know, that was in '73, and that day was Govardhan Puja also. And there was this big old cart. You know, they brought in this cart, you know, the hill of Govardhan made of halava. Now I believe most of the devotees, at least in America, they joined because of halava. It was the most amazing thing, this halava. And there was a whole mountain of it, you know. Here I'm living off of berries and leaves and stuff, and now I see these sweet balls and samosas and pakoras and chutneys and, you know, and this incredible hill of halava, you know, and I thought, wow, these people got the best philosophy, they got the best way of life, and they eat good too. Wow, this is great, you know. So that was a Sunday, and it was at the end of the night. He said, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you all next week. So I was very overwhelmed with grief that I couldn't understand. Now, where I would just sleep was no problem. I could sleep under a bush. I mean, I'm doing tapasya, I'm doing austerity, no problem. I could sleep under a car. It was no problem about that. But I didn't know how I could become a pure devotee on my own. That's what I kept thinking, that the devotees lived in the temple because they'd already achieved prema bhakti, you know. So I was crying on the porch, and this boy Bhakta Bill comes out, and he says, and they called me Bhakta Butterfly. So they said, Bhakta Butterfly, you know, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Did we offend you? And I said, oh, please don't, you know, please don't say that, you know. I just don't understand how I can become a pure devotee without you. And they said, oh, we're not pure devotees. We come here to be pure devotees. You want to be a pure devotee? You can move in. And oh man, it was like fireworks, you know. My tears of lamentation became tears of incredible joy. And that was a Sunday, and Tuesday of that week, I shaved up. And that was 32 years later. And then I met Srila Prabhupada at my initiation, because after 6 months, you know, in those days, you could send a letter to Prabhupada, and, you know, the temple president would send your beads and a letter, and then Prabhupada would do it by mail back. Well, they said, you know, and I didn't want it that way. I was reading the Bhagavatam, and I was reading the cultural, you know, the traditional way of getting your dark beads from the guru, you know, and I wanted to meet Prabhupada. I've been worshiping him now for 7, 8 months, you know, and I wanted to meet him, you know, and they said, well, if you wait, you know, after 6 months, if you wait another 3 months, there's a Rath Yatra in Chicago, 500 miles north of us, and it'll be the first Rath Yatra, and Prabhupada will be coming. So I said, sure, you know. So I got into distributing books. I was a book distributor. And in our temple, we were always glorifying the quality of that high was low and low was high. In other words, that the person who had to take a position of, you know, GBC or guru or temple president in those days, you know, that they were the unfortunate ones, because they had never time to think of Krishna. And the ones that were doing the menial service, who were washing the pots, cleaning the toilets, that they were the most glorious devotees. So when I would go out and distribute books, many times I would distribute more books than anybody else. And my reward for distributing books was to go and clean the toilet. And with a toothbrush. It wasn't a bucket of water, it was a toothbrush and a cup, you know. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And it was the most ecstatic service. Washing the people's feet when they come to the Sunday feast, you know, washing the toilets was the greatest service. And the temple president in those days, you know, where was he? He was never in his office. He was washing pots. He was fixing a car. He was painting the wall, you know. He was an example. He showed us exactly how to live by being the same way we were. And so then it was Sunday. It was you know, Chicago Rath Yatra. We drive up there, and you know, we're at the airport, and you know, it's all, in those days it was all brahmacharis, so it was like an army of orange, right? These orange halava-filled, passionate book distributors, you know, you know, with 30 mridungas playing and about 100 cartels and roaring the Hare Krishna mantra. You know, anybody who was not wearing orange, they had to be tossed out of the area. The police didn't know what to think. You know, there's like 500 of us, you know, just took over. You know, we just took over. And then somebody said, Prabhupada's playing, you know. So then the windows started to almost seem like break, because, you know, there was so much roaring of the mantra and the drums and the kartals. And then as the people were getting off the plane, you could see the lights, the shadows, that you could see somebody coming, who would be coming in next. And so we'd go, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. It was never Prabhupada in those days. With Prabhupada, it was Prabhupada. We never said that. So we were Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. And then it'd be some lady, some passenger off the plane, and we'd stop, you know, come on, get out of the way, get out of the way, you know. Then we'd wait, you know, we'd see another shadow, Jaya Prabhupada, and it'd be so, get out, come on, you know. We'd push all these people out of the way, you know. And then the last one was Sudama Maharaj. He was Prabhupada's secretary at the time, and we saw him. Sudama Swami, you know. Wow, now we know. Next one is Srila Prabhupada. And it was a door, and you could not see on either side, just the door. So when Prabhupada came, the edge of the door, he turned his head and he looked at us like this and waved to us. And then stepped out and came in, you know. Wow. I mean, I still remember it today, and I think if you ask all of the God brothers, they'll remember Srila Prabhupada as this gigantic person. I remember him in my heart's eyes, this guy that was like this big, you know, but he was only my size, you know, actually physically, but not the way I saw him. And Srila Prabhupada was so humble and smiling, you know, and all the devotees were roaring, you know, and the devotees, before we came to the airport, they were giving us instruction, like not touch Prabhupada's feet. Because we were all so full of halava, we were so passionate, you know, they would just die, they probably broke his legs or something, you know, so he kept everybody away. But when I was paying and the other thing about Srila Prabhupada was that you couldn't take your eyes off of him. if you remember, you can remember that, you know, you know, you'd go all the way down to the floor, you know, looking at Prabhupada until boom, and then you'd hit your head on the floor because it was so close, you know. Oh, Vishnu, oh, Krishna was, you know, black eyes, big knot, you know.